Chapter 103, The Dauntless. So, asteroid 827b in the Hycanith system, is it? May I ask you too why you've brought this celestial body to my direct attention? Admiral Cistern asks of both a member of the Science and Research Department and an operative of the Intelligence Division. It's unclaimed, sir. We came up with this idea after speaking at lunch. Dr. Janet Polito remarks. We were discussing the men aboard the Chainbreaker and how they've recently arrived at a space station. We then spoke about both the possibilities of building one and the uses of one as well. Agent Willis O'Brien adds. Continue. Admiral Cistern prompts them. Simply put, we want to put together a design of a rotating mining habitat off an asteroid and use that as a testing ground. We'll be borrowing design methodologies from the locals. There are even some designs that are shockingly easy to build and maintain. A little reinforcement and we can have a safe place, only a few days travel outside the easiest exit point from cruel space. To test out a lot of our theories of weapons and such, unless we can get started on a base on Anriac 4 way ahead of schedule. No, I've already approved of the prospects to terraform the planet. You know this Dr. Polito. You researched possible ice-based asteroids to redirect into a collision course with the planet. Well, having a base on it to observe the seismic and atmospheric effects of the impacts would be astounding. They would indeed, but such things are some time off. While the ship is bloated with crew, 5,000 soldiers, 1,000 technicians, 100 command staff, 250 scientists, and 100 men in the Intelligence Division in addition to 56 dedicated linguists, 44 legal professionals, and another 50 political scientists, all told quite the army of able-bodied men and women to see this endeavor through, but not enough. That's the ultimate difficulty and the greatest irony of this voyage. Or rather, one of the great ironies, there are quite a few contenders for the title of greatest. The ship is bloated with able-bodied men to the point that cabin fever is a constant concern. Yet we lack the manpower to properly set up the infrastructure needed to affect things on a truly appreciable scale. But we've affected galactic policy, openly fought terrorist dissidents, and even conquered a world. We blackmailed a single governor of a single district to vote in a direction of a complete non-issue that means nothing to no one but ourselves. We've gotten into a gang fight, one so common that there are nearly a baker's dozen a day across this world, and that world we conquered. That was done almost entirely by pirates with our boys, merely cleaning out some of the competition with surgical strikers. Even then, they still needed the pirates to do a lot of the heavy lifting when numbers were needed. So what, sir? Are you saying that it's pointless? That we can't do a thing? Dr. Polito asks. I'm saying we need to be realistic. If we had 100,000 men, we wouldn't be able to put a dent in the madness that is this galaxy. If the whole of the human population were brought into the prime of their lives, given the same training as every soldier, lawyer, scientist, technician, and intelligence officer, simultaneously, and all of them given a flawless plan of movement, scheming, murder, and action, we still would not have enough people. That's absurd. One man in the right place can make all the difference, Agent O'Brien remarks. True, however, how best to describe this? Off the top of your head, do you know the population of this city planet, which is not unique in the galaxy? It's just a political center. Off the top of my head? That idiot reporter that was there when we first landed clearly has dyscalculia. As for actual numbers, roughly 500 trillion on the last complete census, with only the lowest most levels of the cultural criminals and mentally damaged actually living in squalor. Which means that if we were to suddenly get 2 billion more people on our world and all of humanity were to team up as a single massive unit to march on Centris, we would be outnumbered 50,000 to 1. Sir, If we were to use all 5,000 of our soldiers to control this world, then they would each have to be equal to 100 billion enemies. Now, I know we've had a rash of successes, but I wouldn't trust my men to be able to beat 5 million termites in a fight without chemical weapons, let alone 500 billion sentient, technologically advanced, reasonably educated aliens. That's putting aside the sheer shenanigans that Axiom affords both them and us. "So what do we do, sir?" Dr. Polito asks, and Admiral Cistern smiles. "We remember our advantages and make use of them. We're outnumbered and outmatched on such a scale that it stops being a detriment and starts being a benefit. Your space station is ambitious, but it lacks the sort of shoot for the moon and land among the stars momentum that I was hoping for. Care to revise your estimates?" Admiral Cistern says. "Well, we could work a series of communication pylons into it to give ourselves exclusive ways into and out of the galactic information and communication networks, our own back doors and private channels. Of course, that would mean that multiple such stations would be needed," Agent O'Brien considers. "They could also serve as massive weapon testing facilities. After all, they would be the target of pirate raids a great deal, meaning we'll have no shortage of moving targets." Dr. Polito considers, and Admiral Cistern leans back and pulls out a cigar. He pats himself down for a lighter when Sir Philip kindly uses a wooden match to get it going. He nods in thanks to the dutiful man, and they both relax to enjoy the show. Experimental starship manufacturing base as well, especially since the Hykenith system has several unusually dense asteroid belts. They could be used to test flight capacity or weapon strength, fleet maneuvers in zero gravity, three-dimensional formations. Not to mention just basic research into mining, refining, and manufacture in space. Specific parts of the station could be excluded from the artificial gravity fields to allow us to study methods usable near Earth as well. Not to mention there are construction methods that use Axiom so designing and testing the components of a manufacturing facility which takes advantage of them before shipping them near Earth to be taken up and finished. Sending in massive cargo containers worth of resources that are already in space would cut down on the cost to make and send more ships out of cruel space, which would allow us to snowball the entire planet economically. We just need to make sure that wars don't break out over the materials. We don't want a nuclear space race for the big shipping container in the sky. "You don't have to worry about that. I'll be seeing to it," Admiral Cistern promises, which startles both Dr. Polito and Agent O'Brien, as they had actually forgotten where they were. "How, sir?" O'Brien asks, and Admiral Cistern smiles. "Essentially by controlling it all myself using an impartial methodology. The major 10 contributors to the space outreach programs will each have a guaranteed 5%. The remainder will be utilized in more neutral. There's no way to simply hold it above them without provoking a war, so the main methodology would be to get everyone who wants off Earth off and set things up so that fighting over the wealth is far, far more dangerous, stupid, and reckless than simply waiting your turn. But for that, we need to control things," Admiral Cistern explains. "Thankfully, a lot of the infrastructure cost has been alleviated by the Railgun initiative. It can't be used for people yet, but the cost of building ships is likely though the floor if they decided to keep the orbital shipyard they constructed the Dauntless with," Polito considers. "There's no reason they'd have taken it apart. They've likely made it larger, or even more of them," O'Brien remarks before considering. "In fact, since it's now hardest to get people rather than supplies into orbit, it's entirely likely that by the time we've fully re-established contact with Earth, they'll already have plans to start building a legitimate base on the Moon and Mars. The big problem has always been getting people and materials off of Earth. The lack of atmosphere, resources, and heat were always easily enough to solve. It's the gravity well of Earth that stood in the way the most." "Mr. O'Brien, you didn't tell me that you held such knowledge of engineering and other such details," Sir Philip remarks. Nothing official, sir. Just some passing interest to pass my free time upon. It's important to diversify your knowledge and skills, O'Brien explains. Ah, I see, Sir Philip says simply. Not to mention our scientists are absolutely abuzz with these things when they're not going nuts about alien technology. I tend to sit with them at meal times and it's interesting stuff. O'Brien notes. Back to the matter at hand. While I do like your proposition of a space station, I would rather it have a bit more to it than a simple weapons laboratory. In particular, I want not only for it to have the capacity to construct a fleet for humanity, but also communications and some form of docking method. Essentially, I want it to be a place to help humans out of cruel space and be neutral to all governments, yet allied to them all simultaneously. A new human state based in space? It's what we have to do. Otherwise, a massive war could break out for control of this. If this new state only exists to facilitate humanity to the stars, then it will remain acceptable. Essentially, we must make the Dauntless a nationality. Admiral Cistern states calmly, and both Polito and O'Brien openly gape at him. "What?" Polito asks in shock. "I announced my intention to create a space-based human state with a massive emphasis on exactly how this will progress when I sent the Lance 03. Further details will be sent to them." Admiral Cistern explains, and they both stare at him goggle-eyed. "Sir, this? We need to situate ourselves in the galaxy, soldiers. While humanity may be protected by cruel space, we need to stretch beyond it. There are too many resources for the taking for us to stay within cruel space." Admiral Cistern remarks calmly as he takes in their expressions. "Sir, why are you saying this? We've determined that there are more attempts by the minute to breach this office, and it's all but guaranteed that at any moment you're being listened to. Because in the grand scheme of things, despite it being large ambitions for our race, we are still very small. Centris is an elephant. We are a dust mite. Its mechanisms can't even perceive us. However, an hour ago, I received confirmation that Lance 03 has entered cruel space. It can no longer be intercepted in any capacity. Therefore, I can now speak of it and the plans upon it," Admiral Cistern remarks. "And the bugs? The spies listening in?" Agent O'Brien all but begs. "We're thoroughly aware of them. The information they're receiving is either deliberately misleading, misinforming, or incomplete. Furthermore, we've determined what they're looking for. None of it is anything we've spoken about." Sir Philip remarks calmly. "But you two are fairly well-known gossipers. Had I made the announcement myself and attempted to contact all individuals in the EFL and all individuals on and off duty, it would take a great deal longer to disseminate the information." "Information, sir?" Dr. Polito asks in a slightly stunned tone. "We're all registered as the Undaunted, a human military state that exists outside of null space. Galactic policy does not allow an entire species to be represented by a single person, but rather every policy within it requires representation." They just stare at the Admiral, who smiles. "Feel free to speak of this among your fellows. I will begin official announcements within 48 hours, and I expect the revised plans for the space station within 72 hours. Impress me." Admiral Cistern orders. "Sir, are you announcing yourself as a military dictator?" Agent O'Brien asks, and the Admiral shakes his head. "No, this will be a meritocracy. One where the position is earned every 5 years. Every senior officer will have to pass a performance review and judged by their peers. With the Grand Admiral being replaced, chosen or sustained by a vote of all captains and admirals, chosen from the admirals. Every other rank must be earned properly and sustained in the performance reviews. A meritocratic stratocracy. What about people that wish to leave the military in hell? What about people like me? I'm a scientist, not a soldier," Dr. Polito exclaims. "Anyone found abusing the power of their rank will be dishonorably stripped of it. Even I am not immune. Everyone serves for a time. Afterwards, they hold all the rights, responsibilities, protections, and expectations of a full citizen. You are currently serving on a military vessel. You are to be commended for it, the Admiral states. Why, sir? Polito asks. I can't get anything done unless I can prove I unilaterally represent at least a single fraction of humanity. Otherwise, everything they've permitted us here is merely for their personal entertainment. We're a joke to them. I need to be able to state with complete certainty and confidence that I speak for at least one government in totality rather than a single ship that was sent by a loose collection of governments. Do you have any idea what this is going to do? Yes, we're going to have absurd rumors running around the ship and picked up by all the spies, hacks, and infiltrated portions of the world. Long story short, we're doing a massive disinformation move while we set up a defensive state which will be dedicated to helping humanity out of cruel space. The Admiral states, and both just stare at him. Dismissed. Bring me those plans in 72 hours.